Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you for joining me here. I hope you're having a great day. We're taking another peek here at Solana, seeing what's going on. We got this lower support range, 136 to 141. Still hoping to get in there if the price were to pull back. That does require Bitcoin to kind of hit that low 90 to 88.5K range, which I still think is a possibility. But for now, this cup and handle pattern is tentatively invalidated, but there's a great chance we could still flag out here where the price action pulls back to these lower ranges. Anyways, just giving you kind of some food for thought there. Not trying to get you to attach your mindset to the price, the price pulling back. I really hope it goes up. But generally speaking here, Bitcoin's massively overextended. There's a tremendous amount of liquidation delta that is fully overextended. There's a lot of reasons why a short-term pullback makes sense. But once more, this is one of those type of fundamental catalysts where there's just a lot of good euphoria coming in and people make really poor decisions when it comes to trading. And me personally, I've been just kind of waiting for these dips to happen that don't really happen. And this is kind of one of those situations where not fumbling in can be a problem, but it's also the safer and the right thing to do too. So be careful taking a long right here at 150. I would say a pullback to the 140s would be a bit more sensible. But once more, we're going to take a look at the combination of Bitcoin and altcoins and that altcoin dominance scenario there and kind of see where we're at, because that's really going to help us understand, well, how well this coin is performing versus Bitcoin and if it's due to pull back harder or with it. Anyways, with that being said, not a lot of liquidations left, so less incentive to push the price action higher from a market maker perspective. Oftentimes they push the price to sweep these areas of liquidation and then reverse it. At this point, we've pushed really hard. All of the upper liquidation for Bitcoin at 94,000 is fully swept. So another reason why capitulation makes perfect sense. Now, it's hard to say specifically, obviously, with the price being still in the 93,000 range for Bitcoin, but on the same accord here, there's not a lot of liquidation from a macro perspective. So the overall sentiment here is just, it's bullish, right? So oftentimes you want to go with that trend. So I don't recommend you short this coin. What I would recommend, of course, is waiting for a better long if that were to happen. Okay. Now, the reason why I feel that way is because liquidation delta is overextended for not only Bitcoin, but also here in Solana. So it's really, really high and has been high for a while. So all that being said, when this maintains itself for too long, that natural pullback will happen based on the simple fact that profits must be taken. So it's kind of where we're at there. But when we take a look here at open interest, there's a pretty big gap. There isn't a lot of open interest between here and just say 144 to 135. So once more, that support of 135 to 144 as a close approximate is just kind of reinforcing itself here with open interest. So with this big old gap here, there's a decent chance we see the price pull back. Speaking of gap, let's see if there is any kind of gap here for CME futures. There is for Solana here, and I'll have to highlight this a little bit better later, and I'll post this on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. But there is a gap here effectively on Solana, and that is between 145 and 148. Okay, so the price essentially gapped up too quick on CME futures there, and effectively that should be filled in the relative near future. So that does kind of reinforce that the 140s is a stronger likelihood at this point. Now let's take a look here. Quickly understanding kind of where we're at on the charts here and going from there. So let's take a look at the daily and just recognize this coin's been bullish for some time. We've been above the 50 and the 20-day SMA for quite a while. And those are averaging themselves out in the low to mid 120s. So do I think we're going to see 130 or 125? I think that's a very low probability. But if that were to come to pass, that'd be a good place to consider averaging in, because that's where we have the highest amount of volume and a lot of confluence there with the moving averages. But the daily time frame still looks great. There's nothing that's changed here. We're still over 50 on the RSI, getting closer to 70 here with the money flow index above the price action. Generally speaking, that's a very positive sign. So we've got like 10 out of 10 reasons on the daily time frame not to short this coin. Okay. Now, from a 4-hour perspective here, this is where you start to see some transitions, and we kind of look here. We can see we're at a 9 on TD sequential, which basically implies a correction in the near future. Makes sense. It's natural for a price action to pull back after 9 progressive candles in the same direction. Okay. Furthermore, too, on the 4-hour time frame, we haven't dropped below 70 in the RSI. So generally speaking, you typically want to leave your long position open in these situations. Now, we have secured profits on our long here. Let's take a look here. XRP 25%. They're 40% for Solana. So we have a little bit left in that trade, but not a whole heck of a lot. So honestly, you can leave that open. It's not like a problem. But for the most part, the general rule of thumb is when you're over 70 on the RSI until it comes back down, it's best to presume the price will continue in that same direction. So in this case, Solana should continue to run hypothetically for a little bit longer. But I think it's overextended. I do think Bitcoin's due to correct itself as well. So those little things should factor in here. Now the hourly time frame, is what we're looking at here. Just to quickly note, this does tell us that we're in good shape in all areas and that you shouldn't consider a short at least for a while. I just still don't recommend a short period, but if you're going to insist on that, you're better off waiting for the lagging span to intersect here. But more importantly, I think the best rule of action here is to, if you're going to insist on taking a long, just use a small bag. Use a small percentage, small amount of leverage if you're going to consider taking a long. I think a lot of altcoins are going to start coming alive here soon, or maintaining their range. But with the expectation of Bitcoin pulling back, it makes more sense to wait for the 140s before taking a long than taking a long right here at what feels like the top. Once more, I hope I'm wrong and the price keeps going higher, and that's perfectly fine. But if you want to, average in, that's probably the best strategy at this point, and get a little meat in the game here, so to speak, at this point, and then consider averaging in. So once more, just kind of reiterate the important levels to focus on, I think, is 136 to 145. There's that area there. Once more, where you can see the kind of that gap with CME, or sorry, not CME futures, but the gap here effectively with open interest. There's not a lot of open interest there. And then furthermore, too, if you do look at the CME gap, we should see 146 at the very least retest in the near future. Basically, just that local high retest is a new low. That's kind of what we're looking for. So will that come to pass? It's hard to say. Bitcoin is behaving very erratically right now. So it's difficult. It's difficult trading conditions, but the good news is it's difficult in the right direction. So congrats on those whose spot bags are looking a lot more forgiving today. All right, that's all we got here, folks. Thanks again so much for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.